Welcome guys. I am Vikram Kakar, a student of ACAS Cloud. Today we will see how to log in or how to connect to a Linux VM without public IP from a Windows VM which has public IP. We will do this by using the software PuTTY on the Windows VM. So let's begin. So I've created a resource group already. Now I will create a VNet. I will create a VNet with two subnets, one public subnet and one private subnet. I'll delete the default subnet and now I'll create two subnets. I'll call this one public and use the address space. I will now create private subnet. And I'll create. Once this has been created, I will create two VMs, one Windows and one Linux. So the Windows VM will have a public IP, while the Linux VM will be without a public IP. So this is the Windows VM with a public IP. I'll use the VN which I have created, and I will use the public subnet over here and the Windows public IP. So it's all standard specifications, and I will create. The Windows VM has been created, and now I will create the Linux VM, which will be without a public IP. I'll use the VNet which I have created, and the subnet, I'll use a private subnet. And I will select none in the public IP because we don't want any public IP. We will use a private IP to connect. The Linux VM has been created. Now we will log into the Windows VM and connect to the Linux VM via the software PuTTY, but using the private IP of the Linux VM. So let's go and connect. First of all, let's go and log into the Windows VM remotely. We have now logged into the Windows VM. The first thing I'll do is I'll turn the enhanced security configurations off. Now I will open the internet. This is an outdated version of internet, but it should still do the basic functions. I'll go to google.com and I'll type PuTTY download over here. The first option pretty much is the one, and I'll download PuTTY here. Again, the first option to install. I'll click next and install and finish. So the PuTTY software is now downloaded. So let's open the PuTTY software, and I'll just initially change the appearance a little bit, the fonts and so on. So we will now connect to the Linux VM on the PuTTY software using the private IP of the Linux VM. Open. This is asking me for my username and password. So this has been successful. So we have managed to connect to the Linux VM. And just remember one thing, when you put the password, when you enter your password in the PuTTY software, the screen will remain blank even when you are typing your keys, pressing your keys. But don't be surprised, that's how it's meant to be. Having said that, we have managed to log into, we have managed to connect to the Linux VM, which has no public IP, using the private IP of the VM. And we did this from the Windows VM, which has a public IP. So hope this video has been useful for you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.